Welcome back to this channel. I'm Pastor Joseph. I share devotional thoughts inspired straight from the Bible. We're really excited to answer this question for you today. How do you know if your worship is real? We're going to answer it in 3 simple points. And to find that answer, we're going to jump to Genesis chapter 22, which is the first instance in the Old Testament where you find that word worship. And that's found in verse 5. And it reads this: Then Abraham said to the young man, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you." So the first point that we need to consider about worship is the meaning of the word worship. And that word, that Hebrew word, means to bow down, to weigh down, to cause to be low. So the first criteria in your worship is, are you recognizing how low you are and how exalted God is? Or when you go to worship, do you feel that your vocals are tight, your giftedness is awesome, and that you're going in there with an attitude of pride? See, true worship is about humility and recognizing who you are in the presence of an awesome God. The second thing to consider when you worship is, are you obedient to God's voice? You see, Genesis chapter 22, which is probably the most important chapter in all of the book of Genesis, is the narrative of Abraham responding to God's call, where God commanded him specifically to go and offer his son as a sacrifice. Read the chapter for yourself. You will see that God is asking a really hard thing of him. I'm so glad that God does not ask all of us something extremely hard to do, such as that, like he asked Abraham. But that's neither here nor there. So the second point that you need to keep in mind is, when you go for worship, are you going out of a obedient heart? Have you been obedient before you go into worship? And the last point to consider when you go in for worship and how you know your worship is real, does worship reveal God's character to you? You see, when Abraham went to worship, his son had asked him, "Hey, Dad, where is the lamb?" And Abraham responds in faith. He says that the Lord will provide a lamb. And here we've recognized in Abraham's story that Abraham knows that God will always provide a way out after he asks him to do something like that. Now I'm going to give you a bonus feature. What happens when you worship? You see, Abraham, at the end of this narrative, because he was obedient to God's voice, because he bowed down before the Lord repeats to him the promise that he made to him in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. And in part of repeating that promise to him, he says to him that through your generation, through your children, and I'm paraphrasing this, the nations will be blessed. So your worship today should cause you to be a blessing to all the people around you. So how do you know if your worship is authentic? Well, does it answer the 3 criteria? Do you bow down, whether you're kneeling or making yourself prostrate, but do you recognize your position before an almighty God? Secondly, is it causing you to want to be more obedient to Lord in all aspects of your life, or do you still find yourself trying to do your own thing? And finally, does it reveal to you who God is? If it meets those 3 criteria, then your worship is authentic. And when your worship is authentic, it will cause you to be a blessing in all circumstances, to live a life that enriches the life of people all around you. This is our quick devotional thought for this week. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For the new subscribers, welcome on board. So glad that you're journeying with us. For you older subscribers, thank you so much for journeying along. For each one who watched this video to the end, we really appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching this for the first time and you like what you saw, subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time.